How did your parents completely mess you up? My parents hung metal bars across our bedroom ceilings when I was 9 and made us wrap our legs around them to sleep upside down like bats because they believed gravity was poisoning our brains. Mom and Dad had joined this group that taught gravity pulled toxins into your skull while you slept normally. The leader said humans were meant to hang like our ancestors who lived in trees. They came home from the first meeting with construction equipment and spent all night installing bars strong enough to hold our weight. Dad tested each one by hanging from it himself, timing how long before his face turned purple. The first night was torture. They showed us how to hook our knees over the bars and cross our ankles for security. My little brother cried until he threw up, which looked terrifying coming out upside down. Mom just cleaned it up and rehung him. She said our bodies needed time to remember their natural position. Blood rushed to my head until I thought my eyes would explode. But they padlocked our door and removed the regular bed, so we had no choice. After a week, we learned to sleep in short bursts before the headaches got too bad. Then Mom decided we weren't hanging long enough. She installed timer locks on our knee hooks that wouldn't release for 8 hours. If we needed the bathroom, too bad. She gave us adult diapers and said our ancestors didn't climb down from trees for every little thing. My sister developed constant nosebleeds from the pressure, but Dad said that was just toxins leaving her brain. School was impossible when we kept falling asleep at our desks from exhaustion. The nurse called home about the rope burns on our legs and the burst blood vessels in our eyes. Mom withdrew us for homeschooling, saying traditional education was poisoning us with right-side-up thinking. She hung bars in every room so we could practice proper positioning all day. Even meals happened upside down, with special straws and tubes so we could eat without choking. I tried sleeping on the floor one night, but Dad had installed motion sensors. Alarms screamed until they found me and rehung me with zip ties instead of the timer locks as punishment. The ties cut off circulation and my feet turned blue. They only cut me down when I started convulsing. Mom said I was having a gravity detox seizure and hung me right back up with looser ties. My brother figured out he could unhook one leg at a time and rotate to prevent the worst pain. But Mom caught him and decided he needed stronger treatment. She ordered special boots that locked onto the bars and couldn't be removed without a key. The boots were so heavy they stretched our knee joints backwards. He screamed for hours until his voice gave out. Then they got boots for all of us. The group leader visited to check our progress and said we weren't inverting young enough. He had a newborn daughter who'd been hanging since birth and never experienced gravity poisoning. Mom got pregnant immediately just to prove she could raise a properly inverted baby. She hung upside down her entire pregnancy. When my new sister was born, they hung a tiny bar in her crib with special harnesses. She never learned to crawl normally, just swung bar to bar like they wanted. Then I found Dad's laptop open to the group's private forum. The leader was selling our progress photos to medical fetish sites. Hundreds of pictures of us hanging unconscious, bleeding, crying. Members paid extra for video of our detox seizures. The leader used the money to build a compound where families could live fully inverted. Dad had already put down a deposit. I printed everything and hid it inside my gravity boot. But before I could use it, Mom announced we were moving to the compound next week. She'd sold our house to prove commitment. The new place had no regular floors, just bars at different heights. Bathrooms were holes in the ceiling. Kitchen appliances hung upside down. She showed us proudly like it was paradise. That night, I cut through my bootstraps with a stolen knife. My legs were so deformed I couldn't stand normally, but I crawled to my sister's room. She was only 6, but helped me cut the others free. We made it to the front door before Dad heard us. He came swinging across the ceiling bars like some nightmare acrobat, faster than we could crawl with our ruined legs. He grabbed my brother first, rehanging him by his ankles with rope. Then my older sister, using zip ties so tight she couldn't scream. My baby sister tried to swing away on her little arms, but Mom caught her and locked her into a special full-body harness. I made it outside, but my legs wouldn't hold me. I dragged myself across the lawn toward the street, leaving blood trails from where the boots had rubbed my skin raw. Then I heard Mom laughing behind me. "Sweetheart, you can't even walk anymore. Your body knows where it belongs." I looked back to see her and Dad standing normally, casually, like their legs worked fine, like they'd never hung upside down at all. Dad picked me up easily and carried me back inside. As he locked my new boots onto the bar, tighter than ever before, Mom said, "The leader's doctors are coming tomorrow to make the inversion permanent. Just a small surgery on your inner ear so you'll never want to be right side up again." She left the room and her footsteps went down the hall while I hung there testing how much these new boots would let me move. The metal bar creaked when I shifted my weight, but it held solid. These weren't the cheap ones from before that we could sometimes wiggle out of. These were thick industrial things with locks that looked like they came from a real medical supply company. My little brother was whimpering through the wall between our rooms, and I tried to call out to tell him it would be okay. But my voice came out as this broken croak because my throat was still wrecked from all the screaming during our escape attempt. Even trying to make words hurt, and all I could manage was this rough whisper that he probably couldn't hear. The house got quiet except for Mom and Dad talking downstairs about tomorrow's big day and how proud the leader would be. Hours passed with blood pounding in my ears, and my vision getting darker around the edges from hanging so long. Then around midnight when everything was still, I felt something weird against my ankle inside the boot. My fingers could barely reach down far enough, but I managed to grab what felt like a small piece of paper. It was a business card, and when I twisted it toward the moonlight from the window, I could make out writing on the back, "Call if you need help," and a phone number underneath. The younger assistant from earlier must have stuck it in there when they were checking the boots. I couldn't write the number down anywhere, so I started repeating it over and over in my head. 7 digits became the only thing I could think about while I hung there. 555-4321. 555-4321. I said it hundreds of times until it was burned into my brain even as my vision kept going dark. Dad did his regular check at 2 in the morning, coming up with his flashlight to shine it right in my face. He checked that the boots were still locked tight and that I was hanging the right way. I'd pressed the business card flat against my palm against the metal bar where he couldn't see it. He grunted that everything looked good and went to check on the others. By the time dawn came, my legs had gone totally numb below the knees, which actually made the pain better. I could hear Mom downstairs in the kitchen making breakfast and talking on the phone, all happy about today's medical procedure. She was telling someone how excited she was that we'd finally be permanently fixed. My older sister managed to twist herself enough that she could see me through our doorways since they'd left them open. She mouthed, "Help us," and I nodded just a little bit, trying to tell her I had something even though I wasn't sure what I could actually do with a phone number I couldn't even call. Mom came up around 8 with protein shakes in these squeeze bottles, holding them to our mouths while we hung there. She said the doctors would be here at noon and we needed to be properly nourished for the procedure. The shake was thick and gross and I started coughing on purpose, making it seem like I was choking. Mom had to lower me a little bit to pat my back, and while she was focused on that, I let the business card drop from my hand. It fluttered down behind the dresser where I hoped someone would find it later. She got me breathing normal again and rehung me even tighter than before. Then Dad came up with a clipboard and these consent forms, making us practice signing our names while hanging upside down. He said the doctors needed proper documentation that we agreed to the procedure. My signature looked like a little kid had written it because my hands were shaking, and all the blood in my head made it hard to see straight. But that seemed to make him happy because he said it showed we really needed the surgery to fix us. He had each of us sign multiple copies, even my baby sister who could barely hold the pen. The morning dragged on with them getting everything ready downstairs, moving furniture to make room for the medical equipment. I kept repeating that phone number in my head and trying to figure out any way to use it. My legs were so numb now I couldn't feel anything, which scared me more than the pain had. What if they were dying up there and would have to be cut off? Mom wouldn't care as long as we stayed inverted. She'd probably see it as proof we were evolving past the need for legs. Through the window, I could see a van pulling up outside and my stomach dropped even though I was upside down. This was really happening unless I could figure out something fast. The younger assistant got out first, looking nervous and checking his phone a lot. Then an older man with a medical bag who must have been the lead doctor. They started unloading equipment and carrying it toward the house while Dad went down to let them in. I heard car doors slam outside at 10 that morning and crawled across the bar to look out my bedroom window. 2 men were pulling medical equipment from a white van, the younger one from yesterday checking his phone every few seconds while the older guy sorted through bags. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips gripping the metal bar. They carried boxes and cases toward our front door, and I heard Dad's voice downstairs greeting them like old friends. His footsteps came up the stairs with 2 more sets following behind. The younger assistant looked up at me the second they walked into my room and I mouthed, "Please help," as clear as I could make it. He stopped for just a second before looking away and following the older doctor to my sister's room. The lead doctor started checking my older sister's pupils with a small flashlight while she hung there, then tested her reflexes by tapping her knees with some metal tool. He said something quiet about liability and asked Dad if he had medical power of attorney for us kids. Dad got all defensive and started talking louder about how this was alternative medicine, and they didn't need regular paperwork. The younger assistant came over to me with a blood pressure cuff and wrapped it around my arm. When he leaned in to pump it up, I grabbed his wrist with my free hand and squeezed as hard as I could. He looked right at my face and saw how scared I was, then said he needed to check my blood pressure in private without distractions. Dad rolled his eyes but stepped out into the hallway to keep arguing with the lead doctor about paperwork. The assistant leaned close to my ear and whispered fast that what they were doing was illegal, and he'd already called someone that morning. He told me to fake a seizure in exactly 5 minutes, then left to go stall the procedure by asking the doctor questions about equipment. I started breathing faster and faster to make my heart race, feeling my body shake against the restraints. The shaking got real when panic kicked in, but I went with it, letting my eyes roll back into my head. My whole body started jerking and I bit down on my tongue hard enough to taste blood. The lead doctor ran into my room and grabbed my wrist to check my pulse, then told Dad they couldn't do any procedure without hospital clearance for what he called my pre-existing condition. Dad started yelling about how we were moving to the compound tomorrow and this had to happen today. Mom came running up the stairs screaming about the house being sold and everything being ready. The doctor kept shaking his head and talking about liability protection and how he needed an ER to sign off first. The younger assistant pulled out his phone and said they should call 911 for an ambulance to make it official. Before my parents could say anything, he was already talking to dispatch about a minor having seizures who needed immediate transport. Dad tried to grab the phone, but the assistant stepped back and kept talking, giving our address and saying it was urgent. Within 10 minutes, I heard sirens coming down our street. 2 EMTs came up the stairs with a stretcher, 1 woman and 1 man, both in blue uniforms with radios on their shoulders. The woman took one look at me hanging from the bar and the rope burns on my legs, then looked at her partner with this expression I'll never forget. She asked Dad to explain what she called the therapeutic equipment while her partner started checking my pulse and blood pressure. Dad launched into this whole speech about gravity poisoning and how humans were meant to sleep inverted. The male EMT kept writing stuff down on a clipboard while the woman shined a light in my eyes and asked if I could hear her. She asked me directly if I felt safe, and when Dad started to answer for me, she held up her hand and said firmly she needed to hear from the patient. I shook my head no, and she immediately looked at her partner who nodded back. They said they had to take me down from the bar to transport me safely on the stretcher. Dad argued, but they said it was protocol, and started unlocking my boots with bolt cutters they pulled from their bag. As they lowered me down, my legs wouldn't hold any weight, and I collapsed into the woman's arms. She held me steady while I whispered, "Help my siblings," into her ear. She squeezed my hand and whispered back that they were mandatory reporters and this would be handled. They strapped me onto the stretcher and started carrying me downstairs while Mom followed behind yelling about parental rights and alternative healing. The male EMT turned around and told her she could follow in her car to the hospital but couldn't ride in the ambulance. Once they got me loaded in the back, the woman sat next to me and told me I was safe now. The doors closed and we started moving, sirens blaring as we pulled away from the house. I told them everything in one long rush about the bars and the compound, and the photos being sold online. The woman wrote down every word while the man radioed ahead to the hospital about what they were bringing in. She held my hand the whole ride and told me I'd done the right thing by letting them know I needed help. The ambulance pulled into the emergency room bay, and they wheeled me through automatic doors into bright lights that made me squint after being in the dark ambulance. The EMTs transferred me to a hospital bed while talking fast to nurses about what they'd found, using words like mandatory reporter and suspected abuse. A doctor came over right away, younger than Dad with dark hair and tired eyes, and introduced himself as Dr. Derek Rosen while he started checking my legs. He moved each joint slowly, and I winced when he bent my knees because they'd been locked straight for so long. He pressed different spots on my legs and asked if I could feel it, then frowned when I couldn't feel anything below my knees. He shined a light in my eyes and checked behind my ears where the blood vessels had burst from hanging upside down. His hands were gentle, but I could see his jaw getting tighter with each injury he found. He asked if there were other kids at home, and I nodded, telling him about my 4 siblings still hanging from the bars. He stopped examining me for a second and looked at the nurse who was already picking up the phone. The nurse came back with a camera and started taking pictures of every bruise, every rope burn, every place where the boots had cut into my skin. The flash kept going off while Dr. Rosen made notes on a clipboard, measuring the marks and writing down numbers. He told the nurse to call social services and security, then turned back to me and said I was safe now, and they wouldn't let my parents take me back. About 20 minutes later, I heard Mom's voice echoing down the hallway, getting louder as she got closer. She was yelling about her rights as a parent and how the hospital had no authority to keep her child. Security guards appeared outside my room and wouldn't let her pass the doorway. She tried to push through, but they held firm, telling her she could wait in the family room. I could see her face between the guards, red and angry, screaming about alternative medicine and government interference. The nurse came over and held my hand while Mom kept yelling, her voice carrying through the whole emergency room about lawsuits and kidnapping. After security finally got Mom to the waiting room, a woman with gray hair and kind eyes came in carrying a folder. She said she was the hospital social worker and helped kids in dangerous situations. She pulled a chair close to my bed and asked if I could tell her about home. I described the bars in every room, the timer locks that wouldn't open for 8 hours, the heavy boots that stretched our knees backwards. I told her about the surgery planned for tomorrow to mess with our inner ears so we'd never want to be upright again. She wrote everything down without looking shocked, just nodding and asking for more details about the locks and timers. About an hour passed before 2 more people showed up, a woman with short blonde hair and a man in a suit. The woman introduced herself as Lori Pearson from CPS, and the man as Detective Dexter Bradshaw. They asked me to go through everything again, starting from when my parents first joined the group. I told them about the meetings, the leader who said gravity was poison, how Dad installed the bars himself. I gave them the compound address Dad had written on a paper I'd seen, the one where we were supposed to move next week. Lori wrote it all down and said they were getting an emergency order from a judge to check on my siblings right away. She promised they'd be removed tonight and asked if we had any relatives who could take us. I told her about Mom's sister who lived 2 states away, but she'd stopped talking to us after Mom joined the group. Detective Bradshaw asked about the photos I'd mentioned to the EMTs, and I told him everything I'd seen on Dad's laptop. I described the forum where parents posted pictures of their kids hanging, the prices for different types of photos, how the leader used the money to build his compound. I'd memorized the medical equipment company name from the boxes our boots came in, Gravity Free Solutions, and he wrote that down too. He asked if I remembered the website address, and I did because I'd looked at it so many times trying to figure out how to report it. While they were asking questions, Dr. Rosen came back with x-ray results showing stretched ligaments in my knees and compressed nerves in my legs. He said I'd need physical therapy for months to walk normal again, but the damage should heal since I was still young. Lori kept checking her phone and finally smiled, telling me the judge signed the order and police were heading to my house right now. She said my siblings would be brought to the hospital for medical checks just like me. Detective Bradshaw asked if I'd be willing to talk to more investigators later, and I said yes because I wanted the leader arrested. He said the FBI would probably get involved since the website crossed state lines and involved kids from multiple states. The nurse brought me juice and crackers.